Hi guys, so on today's episode I sit down with Christopher Allen, the symbiotic chimp, the _symbiotic _chimp on Instagram. Chris is a powerlifter, he is a personal trainer, he's a coach, he has joined our team down at Origin. He is one of the best additions we've ever had. The motivation that he gives, his view on things is incredible. Like, he's so open-minded. He has a lot of knowledge. He's so passionate about it. It's been amazing to see him go from like member to coach to friend, to be honest with you. I think he brings a brilliant perspective to life, to the world, to coaching, to everything. And he's very honest with the way he comes across, which is massive for me. And that's why he, as well as Jasper, are going to be doing a lot more episodes with us, because I think me and Mark, our Bristolian / Brummy accents probably are grinding on you right now. So we'll kind of bring in the posh boys. I say posh boys because Chris went to a very posh university. Doesn't mean he is one, but for the sake of this, why not? Yeah, we're going to bring those two in quite a lot. So you can follow me at the Body Hack the Mind. You can follow Chris at the _symbiotic _chimp, or just type in Chris Allen personal trainer, probably on Instagram. You might find him, little ginger guy. He's great. Enjoy this episode. If you're on Spotify or iTunes now, give us a 5-star rating and review. If you can screenshot this, share this on your stories, we will be very much appreciative of this. But enjoy this episode with Christopher Allen.
Welcome to Real Coaching Radio, the podcast for coaches by coaches. We are here to teach you how to get the most out of your clients and yourself. This is where beauty meets the beast, brains meet brawn, and science meets, well, bro science. Welcome to Real Coaching Radio.
Well, I was definitely not an athletic kid. I was like tube of Pringles and a Coke can every day kid. Like every day. I did not like exercise at all. And I was probably like 14, I cried on a climbing wall.
Sarah?
Yeah, cried on a climbing wall. I was abseiling down and had to get me a tea and a biscuit to calm me down.
What, in school?
I was like on a school trip, cried on a climbing wall.
No, you don't get over things like that.
Yeah, so I cried on a climbing wall, and so therefore I decided I need to start climbing to get over my fear of heights.
See, that's really strange.
Yeah.
Most people go, I cried on a climbing wall, I'm never going near that again.
Well, it was the abseiling part I didn't like. The actual climbing bit I enjoyed, and it was the coming down. I was like, Mum, help. Okay. So I then, when it started to climb, in Bristol actually, Undercover Rock, and I was probably 14 when I started climbing, and obviously because I'm really small, I was pretty good at it. Yeah. And I started like progressing pretty quickly, and I was only like going once a week. But the main thing holding me back was like I was just obviously unfit, not strong enough.
Okay. So 14.
14. So then around that age, I also discovered girls.
Yeah. Good.
Which meant that you have to go to the gym because I was total like book nerd, no females.
Which is something else I want to get onto, but yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, so I then went into like going to the gym, and we would go to the gym and obviously get like told off for using the weights because we were too young. So you had to just use like machines and like cardio, and obviously you just basically fuck around for like however many years, about 2 years of just like losing the mic over Charlie's shoulder. So I did that and like got more into it, was like training myself, but just like terrible mindset to nutrition and stuff, basically like not eating so I'd get a 6-pack, just trying to get as shredded as possible. So
okay.
Yeah.
How old?
This was like 15.
Yeah.
So like 15, pretty much did have an eating disorder.
Right, but so you were training at 15?
Yeah.
Because that's quite young.
Yeah.
In a gym?
Yeah, in a gym.
What
with
gym?
Weights.
Or in Cheltenham? Chippenham?
Chippenham was my school, but I lived in Cairn. So I went to Cairn Gym.
It's not a place.
Not a place. And if you go there, also, to everyone that lives in Cairn, it's not a place. nothing happens in Khan except ketamine. So went to Khan gym, got told off using the weights a lot.
Yeah.
Then eventually went to the Olympiad, which is like a chain kind of gym with a swimming pool in Chippenham. Got told off using the weights again, but basically progressed to free weights there. Did that till I was about 16. And then we just got really into it, obviously like bodybuilding, and naturally was always really strong considering I was the shortest, lightest guy by far. Like at this point I must have been like less than 55 kilos.
Right. So were you naturally strong?
Yeah.
Or were you just training with people that were stronger than you, so you just kind of kept up?
I think I was naturally strong, but because we all started at the same time, so obviously AJ, our housemate, I was training with him, and Ed actually, and AJ is obviously a big dude, he's strong, and we were like at that time basically lifting the same, and we were going, pretty terrible form, but dumbbell bench press, and I remember then when I was 15, we got up to a pretty terrible form, like 40s for 6 on dumbbell bench press.
That's ridiculously strong.
Yeah.
And that's like 40 kilos, not pounds.
40 kilos, each hand. Yeah. So that was like, obviously probably not touching the chest.
Like 16.
Not much control.
Yeah. No, but like when you're that young, because I remember like when we were, it's just like little things when you're younger, when you start lifting. For me, it was like, right, shoulder press, I want to get to the 30s.
Yeah.
Like it was just things like that. It was like, that's a number, 30s.
Yeah.
And the same for bench. It was like dumbbell bench, 40s.
40 kilos, yeah. And I remember getting up to 44s. Again, like probably terrible form, but I do remember, always being quite strong at that. And then it progressed. We all went our separate ways and, did that. There was a teacher at my school, the guy who played for Aston Villa, actually.
Yeah.
And he was like, do you want to do some like CrossFit classes?
Okay.
And then the 3 of us did CrossFit after school, which was just going into the gym.
Sounds a bit weird with a teacher.
Yeah, especially with your PE teacher.
Can
we all wear shorts, please?
So I had it covered in like coat and 3 pairs of joggers. I had a teacher when I was like I would have been year 1 or year 2.
Yeah.
No. You're 5 year 6. You're 5 year 6.
I was going to say already weird.
Still, year 5 year 6 is like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And he was like, and he played a song in assembly, and I was like, my dad plays that song. I know that song. It was by a band called Stiff Little Fingers. Already weird. Yeah. And he was like at lunchtime, do you want to come and eat lunch with me and we can listen to music?
Yeah, that's a red flag.
So I told my dad said I can't do that anymore.
You can't play with him anymore.
You're not allowed. About a year later, the guy left. No idea. No comment.
I think I know why.
Yeah. I'm perfectly fine, mind. Like, we did...
This is not a call for help.
We did listen to Oasis. And then that was that.
Right.
So training with your PE teacher...
That is weird. No, that wasn't so weird. Like,
that's all right.
It was legit, and he was a great bloke, actually. He was the only PE because I sucked at PE. I was always picked last. It was always like me and Ed. Oh, you can be defender and goalie. And I was like, well, that's shit, isn't it? So we all always picked last. We sucked at all the sports in our like 2 big
Did you even enjoy it?
Hated it.
Hated it.
Every single PE lesson, and I say this to all my PE teachers at school, you made it shit for me.
I hated PE.
You made it shit for me. You made it feel like if someone wasn't good at sport, then they basically weren't good enough. And the thing is, the sports that are popular for, let's say, lads, football and rugby, not exactly great when you're like 3 foot tall.
Right, so we're doing CrossFit.
Yeah, doing CrossFit, but it's basically circuits.
Okay.
But he was, it was when CrossFit was just getting big. So that must have been 2013, 2014.
Okay.
So, he was hyped about it. We were doing anything. There wasn't really any weights. It was all just circuits. Really loved it. Started getting better at it. Then we all went off to university. At this point, I think we were all pretty strong. Like, we had started deadlifting, started squatting. Went to university. First year of university, I joined a society called the Muscle and Athletic Sports Society. MASS. MASS.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
sorry, carry on. Unis are weird though, aren't they?
Weird
Unis
place.
are strange.
And in that tried like an Olympic weightlifting session, a CrossFit session, a strongman session, and like powerlifting. And the one I gelled with the most was CrossFit.
Yeah.
So I was doing CrossFit at CrossFit Avon.
But then I guess because you were strong,
Yeah.
people were just like, you should do powerlifting.
Well, yeah, I basically moved gyms, and a powerlifter was like, how much do you weigh? I was like, a feather.
12 kilos,
Yeah,
thanks.
literally. And at that time, he saw me deadlift 180, and we compared my current lifts to that of the British, and it was like, you already could get a British record if you went now for bench press. So I was like, well, I probably should try that.
That sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah,
that's one of the moments which is like, don't go down there. There's a guy with a gun. Like, it's kind of like, I'm gonna go the other way then.
Yeah.
Like you've got to kind of you've got to listen to the guy at this point. So that's the great thing about gyms is like, because how old are you? Like 18, 20?
Yeah, so I was 18 or 19. Yeah.
So like things like that. Because at that point, I reckon I've been training only for a year. So you're already training like 4 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, which is such a great thing because like at that time you've already been like exposed to all these different types of training. Like for me, it was like, I'm going to go to the gym like with all of my friends and we're all just as insecure as each other. So we're just going to try and get big.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and put muscle on because we're still teenagers, so we've got spotty faces.
Yeah.
And obviously girls don't like us.
Braces.
Yeah. Girls don't like the look of us. And so it was like, well, do you know the joke? The joke was, if my face is a 4, but my body's an 8, at least I'm above average.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle.
So that's healthy.
Yeah.
So we decided we were just training for that. But for you to go from CrossFit to like, for you to just train bodybuilding style, CrossFit, and then like really enjoy CrossFit, but then go to powerlifting, like you've hit a lot of modalities like really early on.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'd say that like I've definitely learned now coming back to fitness so strongly is that you want to start moving as young as possible because you will almost definitely be shit at what you do when you start. Almost definitely. And you want to fuck up the most when one, your body is like really pliable. It could put up with the stress, but also it gives you years of practicing. So when it starts getting important to you, when you're older, you're like, oh, I've already got the basics done. I mean, obviously, start where you're at. If you haven't started yet, you should start. Yeah. But it does make a massive difference if you start from a young age. Ultimately, this is why those people who are in the top 1%, the Olympians, because they started when they were like 12 years old.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just the reps. Like with anything, like kind of.
What is that thing, like 66,000 hours or something? Whatever.
No, yeah, 10,000 hours to become a master or something like that. And it's like, I think it's just little things, like even setting this podcast stuff up. Like, I reckon I've tried to do this. Well, we've done almost 40 episodes, right? Yeah. Mate, every single episode there's something that goes wrong. Yeah. And it's like, and it's the talking side of it. It's just like everything you do just seems to kind of, it's that we were talking about earlier. It's that not stopping, and it's just the progression of like, well, finding a reason to push through. Like for you, why when you hated PE did you enjoy training and still push through all these different things?
That is a good question. I think that they were probably both related to some sort of psychological social status. The thing with PE is it clearly created a hierarchy where you were the lowest rung if you weren't fit, healthy, naturally, whatever. Whereas with fitness, it moved me up this psychological hierarchy where I gained confidence from what I was doing. The way people treated me was different, and therefore it kind of gave me the keys to the kingdom. Everything that I was pushed away from, and I thought this was an interesting idea earlier. I reckon everything I'm good at now is because I was definitely bad at before. It wasn't necessarily the things I was good at to start with that I went on to be better at. It was the things that I didn't like about myself before that I was like, well, I have to change that because I don't want to feel like this anymore. And like,
okay, so it was like the negative, like a connotation with I feel shit that motivated you to go and do things more so you were good at them.
Yeah, like definitely like being perceived as small, weak, and like a bit of a loser. That is something that ultimately is two ways. You let that define you, or you build upon it and be like, well, I can't help being small, but I can definitely fix the other things.
Yeah.
And I do remember there was like a defining point which...
Try bring the mic a bit closer so it's always...
Like here?
Yeah, so you can look at me.
Yeah, so it's definitely like... Yeah, probably a point we'll go on to is, but like I remember the same points at which I was basically improving my confidence, getting some muscle, like had a six-pack, blah, 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 all that classic stuff, and getting stronger was also the same points that I started reading certain types of books, and then that kind of crossed over to me being like, I have the ability to change who I am as a person.
And what age is that? Like 18?
16. 16 was the defining age, yeah.
Which is absolutely mental.
Yeah.
Like, this is the really weird thing about like all of like we'll stick with training for now, but the really weird thing with stuff like that is like at such a young age for you to piece together like, oh, there is an ability for me to be able to push past the things that are currently causing me negativity. Like I found, and I still to this day, like every little setback will take me a while to get over.
Yeah.
Every little thing like gives me it kind of just to the point of like, even if it's a reminder of do what you were doing because you were doing really well. Like when we were going through like change my back squat, change my bench press, grip width, like didn't fuck around with my deadlift and my deadlift was good. And it was like those things like through reps of going like, right, I'm going to try to gain muscle when I was like 19 and I got to 98 kilos and was really fat.
Yeah.
Like just that alone was enough for me to go like, right, don't want to be fat. Yeah. Let's cut all the way back down, learn how to get shredded again. And it's like, right, now how do I do it properly? And it's just that, like to be able to learn that at 16. Yeah. Like,
well, obviously it comes in different ways, obviously, because at 16 you have such an ego. So maybe some of the things I was focusing on took away from other parts of myself. Like I might have been more egotistical, more selfish, therefore less emotionally intelligent. But there was definitely this defining thing for me in my life, which is like the feeling of negativity. Like I would say we grew up in a time where like mental health as a thing hadn't quite become as prominent as it was. So the bad feelings you suffered as a child, you were like, that's part of growing up. Yeah. And the feeling that I felt is I don't want to feel the bad feelings. I do want to feel the good feelings. So you have positive and negative feedback. And then you go, okay, I need to improve the things that give me negative feedback to move away from feeling like that. And the positive feedback, I need to find that more. Yeah. And ultimately, that does lead to unhealthy habits as well, like drinking, drugs, smoking. But it also leads you to be like, well, if I act like this in this environment, people are going to look at me and think I'm weird. So I don't want to do that again.
There's the pleasure and pain trade-off. Yeah. So it's just like the more I get pleasure from something, like the more I'm going to go towards that. But the things like drink and drugs and even training to a certain degree, like you can get pleasure from these things. Eventually you're going to get this thing of this like spike of dopamine. And then as soon as you kind of hit that high, you start coming back down the other way. The more and more you chase it, the more that deep drop below gets lower and lower and lower. Yeah. And it's this trade-off between pain and pleasure. And it's like, it takes people a long time to realize like, and sometimes never realize actually like what I'm doing is causing me more harm than good. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, and that's part of like the kind of self-awareness talk that like I always go on about is like, you've got to be aware enough to know when something good is actually detrimental for you. Because motivation in these aspects of things, of being motivated to go to the gym, to go train, to go and like lift weights, driven by something. So I had this conversation with my dad the other day and he was arguing against me because that's what my dad does, which is great. But it's great for me and stuff like that because I get to now, I hone my arguments a bit better. Like I learn to communicate better.
Express it to the layman. It's not just like the people who agree with you. Yeah.
And that's and I was saying to him is like, most people will get pushed by negative emotion so much that will drive them to a destination they didn't even want to go to. Yeah. Whereas if you have an idea of what you want from your life, you have an idea of what is important to you when it's all said and done, like looking back at your life when you're on your deathbed, what is important to you, and defining that to a point where you know, actually, these are the things that's going to make me happy. And like, that's going to change throughout your life. But defining those points means that any negative emotion can push you forward, but you've still got the checks and balances to go, is that pushing me to where I want to go? Yeah. Because like, that's the thing of going like,
people, I've had a client before who was anorexic, then went obese, and then went to the gym so much that the gym just overtook all of those addictions, and took and was the thing that would hide, and she could hide in with those feelings, those thoughts and feelings. So I don't need to think about the bad feelings I'm getting, because I'll just hide it with either controlling my food to the point where I'm anorexic, eating and overindulging to make me feel better, or training so much that I don't have to deal with those thoughts in my head.
Also, you kind of have that thing which is you're still controlling your food and you're overindulging in the gym. So you're doing the two same habits redefined in another look.
And that's my point, is like, for her, what's the end goal? What's pushing you towards it? Because the bad feelings will push you to do things, and you'll convince them yourself that they're good. You'll convince yourself, well, it's fun at the time, or this is positive because I'm being told it's positive. And it's like, no. Even the gym can be addictive. Even the things that you do that you really enjoy could be taken away from your life if you don't step back, be aware enough to go, actually, what is this? What am I doing?
I think one of the defining moments for me is, because it's happened pretty recently into my life, is following the dopamine hit. I'm a very dopaminergic person. I'm pretty ADD, so I'm always following the pleasure-seeking mindset. And you can totally see that with the gym. Like, I'm fully addicted to it, and I fully am doing it all the time. And the difference was, for me, when I switched over to a less healthy thing, when I was going to like raving all the time, and I was drinking all the time. Like, as a bartender, I was literally drinking every single day. You know, sometimes from like 11 o'clock, you go in. I remember the feeling of being excited to go to work so I could have my first drink. I remember that feeling. Like, I'm going to go make some cocktails. And I was like, oh yeah, I was just excited to then go drink. But the thing is, when I was away from that really strong fitness thing, when I was doing all the competitions and with powerlifting and stuff and CrossFit, and the communities I met in that, and the friends I made in that, and, you know, working my way up in this university society and organizing that, when it teetered off and I went more into like party socializing, all that kind of stuff, and that led into my life after university, all I remember is, like, I remember missing those other things, even though the feeling when doing them at the time was the same. So I remember feeling like, when you're drinking and partying and doing drugs, you do get those dopaminergic hits, but then afterwards, it doesn't give you anything. Doesn't give you anything. But the thing is, with the other thing, I would get these big dopaminergic hits, win a competition, you know, be around people supporting them in their competitions, teach a class, do all these kind of things. And then afterwards, the high would maintain, and my feeling of confidence in who I was would maintain. And I remember pretty recently being like, especially when I came out of the industry, I was like, oh shit, yeah. So like, the addictive pathway is there, but one was kind of like leading to more. It was progressive. And the other one was stagnant, if not regressive, because I was losing out on opportunities to grow. I could have gone further, and now will go further, because I've taken out those bad habits that I originally had in that time.
I think as well, though, like, but that's the awareness to kind of know, like, and it takes ages, mate. And that's the thing. Like, I think the really cool thing about that is just like,
talk about drugs while he drinks his rain.
Well, no, but this is the fun bit about it, is like, I went through a period, probably just before we stopped podcasting this year, April time. So between September and April, mate, I reckon I went 3 months without calling my mum.
Yeah.
And that was because in my mind, I was doing the right things. I was doing the things that I thought I needed to do. And I wasn't being aware enough to step back and go, like, what's important to me? What do I want? And that was because I hadn't worked out at that point.
What will you miss when it's gone?
Right. I wasn't working out what is the most important things to me in my life. And it's like, and that's why I think this is important to note, is like, when you do love the gym and you love training, you love fitness, it's so easy to go all in.
Yeah.
And I think, like,
definitely,
it's that knowingness of going, right, when I'm doing it, I'm all in. I can study this for hours. I can train this for hours. I can become the best coach. I can become the best powerlifter. I can become the best knowledge base of fitness. As long as the other times when I'm with my mum, I'm spending time with my mum. When I'm with my partner, I'm spending time with my partner. Yeah. Like, when I'm walking my dog, I'm not thinking of other things apart from walking my dog and enjoying the moment. It's that being able to take yourself away from it.
There's definitely, like, I mean, this is the whole thing about all these spiritual kind of directions is the idea of presence, being present in the moment. It's so easy to be present when you're getting activated dopamine in your brain, because your brain is literally chemically making you present, being like, you're enjoying this, you're in a flow state, you're focusing on it. The real challenge is people who are, let's say, dopamine dependent, addicted people, down in caffeine all the time, and going to the gym, listening to loud music, whatever it is, going to social events. When they actually are in different situations, they have to be like, I need to get dopamine from this by being present in it. You can't get that hit of dopamine and enjoyment of life in those moments if you don't give focus to it. It's something I really struggle with and really have been trying to improve at, because like obviously like as you know, I love reading, but to get into that state, I have to allow myself to relax and not be searching for a hit. I have to be like, this time I can give to walking the dog. I can give this time to reading a book. I can give this time to talking to my friend. And all of them do give me hits of dopamine because they're all valuable to me. But because they're not the instant hit, because they took a little bit of work, then I can sometimes be like, I'd rather be going and doing this other thing. And I do find that difficult. Like sometimes, obviously the biggest one we always talk about is social media. Now I'm using Instagram a lot. Sometimes I'll be like in a room with my friends talking and I'm like making a reel and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? What is this? This is such a weird, like I feel the almost panicked, I need to do this because it's giving me a dopamine hit. I need to do this before I do this other thing. But actually that literally can happen whenever the fuck I like.
Right.
Whereas that other thing now is only happening now. Yeah. And that time is in this moment. It's finite. It happens once.
But that's the thing I think you've hit on there is just, and this is what I was talking to Jasper about this. It's like, have a structure, have a plan. Yeah. Because like, have an idea. And this is why like, I keep going back to the end in mind. Think of the end in mind, think of what you want. And it's just like, when I realized that what I actually want, and mate, I didn't realize this till, September the 8th was when I had this big realization. Like I had it a little bit before that, but it wasn't until then when I did this 3 months where I was going to plan the next 3 months of my business and what I'm going to do in work wise. And I spent 4 hours of that day thinking about what I want from my life and thinking about who's important to me and what's important to me. Because same thing, I've spent hours and hours editing videos, ignoring my partner because I was like, I've got to do this, because if I don't, then I'm not gonna achieve what I need to achieve. I'm not gonna know what I need to know. I'm not gonna be able to actually create a business. I'm not gonna be able to afford to do things, and then everything's gonna happen and my life's over. And it's like that's the thing that like anxiety. So anxiety and depression lead to the same things in the sense of anxiety is fear of death. Depression is like I should die. Yeah. So like either people are like one way or the other, or sometimes both, and it's just like. Yes, you don't have to create that reel now, but what your brain tells you, if you don't create that reel now, you're actually gonna die. Yeah. And it's like this pathway of going, you don't create that reel. You're somehow
behind. Yeah.
You're behind. Yeah. You're not going to achieve what you need to achieve. You're not going to get the money that's going to come in. You're going to be homeless. You're then going to turn to drugs and alcohol, and then you're going to die. And it's like, oh min, and that's happened in 30 milliseconds while I'm having this conversation with people going, I'm going to die if I don't do it. And it's like, right, bring yourself away. Take those moments when you read. This is the thing that reading for me is the one thing which settles me down. For some reason, like reading a fiction book, like I am so high strung until you put me and sit me down with a book that I just relax.
Yeah, it's dissociation. Like, I mean, like that's literally the effect of why a lot of people get into drugs. It's the disassociation of, I want to step out of my own mind and body for a moment and just be in something else. And it's almost like a meditative state. There was actually like a funny meme I saw today. It was really relevant to what you're saying. It was just like, oh, I'm getting up to live the same day for the 75th time in a row. And that really like stung me, because I was like, yeah, I have had that for like 4 years before this. Yep. And I think in the moment of those 4 years, I didn't really think about progress, because I thought progress was coming in the busyness of my life. Like I was like, if I work harder, I impress these people, I get this progress in this job and whatever, it's going to lead and it feels. And like I said the other day, I started in one place, I worked all my way up in my head to another place, and I ended where I started. Yeah, mate. Because I was self-contained in this industry where I actually made no progress in myself, and therefore in my actual life, not in someone's business, but in my actual life, I made no progress.
Yeah.
And then I've come back here, and now I'm like, well, everything I do has to be progressive for me. Yeah, like progressing in your job is amazing, and it can be for you. But if you're not doing stuff to progress yourself, if you can't have a more interesting conversation in a year's time, if your body isn't more fit and healthy in a year's time, if your mind isn't more mentally sound in a year's time, you haven't done the important things for yourself, because what you've actually done is you've been caught up in the trap of the day, and you can literally roll day to day. I mean, we talked about this the other day. It's like, when's the last time you actually was like doing some work and sat down to do some work? Because you just get caught up. You're just doing stuff, interacting with people, and it feels all like very valuable at the time, but you're like, yeah, but actually what am I doing for myself? And I realized that probably, well, when I changed jobs, definitely, but also like the other day I was like, God, I haven't fucking sat down and just chilled.
Yep.
For myself. Like, I'll sit down in the evening and I'll be like, well, maybe I should like write something or do some editing, or maybe I should like look at, you know, some knowledge that I can gain. And I was like, those things are so valuable, and I see where they've come from, because I didn't do that for 4 years. But also being able to be like, okay, what am I doing for me?
Yeah, mate.
Today.
It's just so interesting, because like I think everyone comes to those realizations at some point, and like people, you need to find out on your own, don't you? Like, because it takes you a while to like, you hit a dark place, you hit the rock bottom to be able to realize like, oh fuck, I need to change absolutely everything.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, and like, you know, progress is measured in so many ways, so it's very hard like to know exactly, okay, which is the right progress I should be making, because progress in a job might be fundamentally so important to who you are as a person, especially right now. Like right now, a job I enjoy, me progressing in this is fundamentally improving myself. I know that for a fact. So, and now I feel like I'm working for myself and doing stuff for myself. But it's just, I think it's being aware that like taking a step back when you're making the choices of being caught up, and like you said, ignoring your partner for work or ignoring your partner for this, and not giving them, like, I know it sounds so clinical, but if you don't give set times of the day to be like, this is for them, this is my time for them, if you don't do that, then you will get caught up. And if you're constantly being like, I just need to do this thing, one more thing for work, or one more thing for this moment, or one more thing, and you're not taking that time to be like, right, hang on, I choose that all the time, so in this moment I should choose the thing that is fundamentally more important. And that is something obviously I'm also trying to improve on, is like give time to those moments where I'm like, well, this is never going to come again, so if I don't get it now, it's gone forever.
Where do you think these realizations come from for you? Like, where do you think you understand that you've got to do these things, you've got to change your ways? Like, how have you become aware, or how were you not aware, and now why are you aware that you need to do these things, you need to change?
You know, it's funny, like there's such an avoidance of, like, for good reason, of like anxiety and regret and guilt. And I always say to people about, you know, you shouldn't live in regret or live into your anxious thoughts, but for me, they're pretty good indicators of where you should be heading. Like, if something's constantly making you anxious, or you're constantly living in a state of, oh, I wish, I regret, I preferred it when, you got to change it.
Yeah, man.
You got to get back to that place. Whether that place looks different, it looks different for me now to what it was before. Like, it's funny because I left university and I constantly missed it. I was like, oh my God, I miss this so much, or whatever. And I went into the bar industry, basically trying to relive the hype I had in university. And I loved it to start with. And then obviously it kind of dissipated, and I realized I was chasing the dragon, right? I was trying to look for this magical, mythical creature that no longer existed, but some of the things that I valued in university still existed. Having a close group of friends, which I have a good social bond with, the community that I got from lifting and doing the lifting part and progressing like that, and the intellectual stimulation, reading and thinking about things and having discussion. Those things I could all still have, but in my mind it was like, I loved it when my eyes rolling in a rave. I was like, I want to go back to the fun bit. But actually, that's not what I was missing. I was missing the other parts, the community of living in a house with people. And like, and I think when you realign, you can redefine the things that matter to you. Like, obviously, it's not the university that matters. People can't live in university forever. They can't live in that state of mind forever. And a lot of people, like, you know, they move to a different part of their life and they go, oh, I wish it was like when I was 20. I wish it was like this. It's like, yeah, but it's not.
Yeah, mate. That's the biggest red flag for me is people that talk about, remember when we did
when we used to be fun.
And I for me, it's just like, the only thing you've got in life is the ability to progress. Like, because you are born with nothing. You have zero knowledge about anything. And the path you choose, the thing you decide to dedicate your life to is ultimately what defines how your life ends up. And I think that's the hard bit for people to understand is like, I'm not sat here saying everyone needs to be self-employed, everyone needs to work as their passion.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is you need to figure out what you want from life to be able to make sure that everything you do that day is going towards the thing that's going to make you happy.
Yeah.
Rather than living a life and going, didn't want to marry that woman.
Yeah.
I got 3 kids with her now, so now we're going to have a divorce and I'm going to buy a sports car. Yeah. And it's like you're, because of hindsight, because of not defining that thing, because of fear, like, this is the most difficult thing, and I think I'm starting to understand this now. Like, and we're going to get onto books in a minute, because the more I read, the more I start to realize how stupid I am. And what I mean by that is like, so I'm reading Musashi, and I said this quote on the other time when I was with Mark, and I think I'm probably going to butcher it again. But long story short, Musashi gets locked in a room for 3 years. He's not allowed to leave, and all he can do is read books.
Yeah.
The last thing the guy or the monk says to him before he like locks him away or before he lets him out is another quote from another guy, and he goes, I've read 1,000 scriptures, and every single time I put the book down or I put the scroll down, my heart sees the world differently.
Yeah.
And I think that's for me been the biggest understanding of like, understanding where fear comes from, understanding why I'm so afraid to do things, understanding that there is reasons why I lead my life with anxiety and why I don't want to do some things. If I can understand that, if I can understand why I get anxious, if I can understand that actually fear is what I should chase, anxiety is what I should chase, because 1, that is the ability to grow. 2, it gives me an idea of what I don't know. And the ability to progress and gain knowledge is all I have to get better and to be a better person.
Yeah, so interesting. There's like loads of things that like stimulated when you said that. So there was that quote from Jimmy Carr who was like, life, like the meaning of life is to enjoy the passing of time. And that was something that really stuck with me because yes, progress is fundamentally important, but progress is a side effect of you doing the right things in the moment. And I think not enough people are, like we're talking about, present, and therefore they're not in, like, obviously the whole idea of Taoism or Taoism is the idea you're living in the flow. You're living in, imagine life as a river. There's a pretty limited stream. You can kind of go side to side, but the more you live into the flow, the more comfortable it feels, and usually the more doors that open, right? So the more that you are yourself, the more you're true to your beliefs, the more you're true to yourself, the more it feels natural and you enjoy the passing of time. As a result, there is progress. Where it feels like you're butting heads against walls is usually because you're not living as yourself, you're living as an expectation of yourself, and therefore you go into lots of closed doors because they're not meant to be open for you. And I think that the enjoying of passing of time, when we're talking about living that same day, it's like Groundhog Day. You are going to live fundamentally the same day a million times. So you should be living 70% of that day in a state of like, I like this is enjoyable. So it's not about, you're not going to be fucking traveling around the world every day, right? And those things will happen, but don't live for those moments. Live for the everyday you're going to live every single time. And if you're waking up every day like, oh my God, I just want something different, the reason you're not progressing is because you're not presently enjoying the moment. When you presently enjoy the moment, it's like this conversation, there's flow, and that flow leads to new things. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not in the metaphor of the stream getting snagged on the side and getting stuck there till the stream runs dry. You are flowing down the stream. And I think that is like really important, because progress does come from when you are present and when you're living more, the word naturally is a bit dodgy, but naturally to be yourself. But
that's what I mean by the progress is like, progression in a direction that is perfect for you. You don't, someone said this, can't remember who, you don't want to climb to the top of the ladder and realize you were on the wrong ladder. And that's what I mean by the progress, is like, you get the choice and the option on what you spend your time and your life doing.
Yeah.
If you work a job and it's an 8-hour job and you're like, but I can't do the other things, and it's like, agreed, there is 8 hours in the day which is blocked out for doing something so you can live and survive. But there is time before that which you can dedicate to yourself. And I think that's my biggest thing for myself, for other people, is like, we spoke a lot about progression here, and it's just like, for me, and spoke about just like understanding yourself and progressing yourself as a person, not necessarily progressing in life the way you think it should be, but progressing in life in the way you want it to be. And that's like, I wake up every day and read in the morning because that is for me. And I tell clients who go to the gym, I tell them, if you're doing it in the morning, you're doing something for you. You're not waking up first thing and doing something for someone else. And I think that starts your day, that changes who you are, and such a big level, because you start your day with, I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this for the person who I think I should be, or I'm not waking up and doing something for someone else. And it's like, that ability to just like take a step back and to follow the flow of the river and be yourself and be comfortable following the flow of the river, it's almost a skill. It's almost like something that's really hard to learn.
Yeah, well, I think like, probably like quite a concluding point on that, but like the moments in my life where I feel the most free, the moments in my life where I'm like, oh yeah, this is it, like I've got it right, is when I can take a step back and be like, I didn't really enjoy that, I think I can change that. The moments where I'm not in the flow, as it were, and I'm just caught up in the rat race, and I basically am just living for work. I'm just like getting up, I'm tired, I need to eat for work, I need to come back from work, I need to relax from work. If your whole life is focused around fixing yourself around your work, of course it's going to feel shit. And the real truth is, if that's the state you're in and you're saying the sentence, yeah, but I have to do this, I have to do this to make money, you absolutely do not have to do anything that's going to make you into a permanent state of unhappiness. And you have to realize that, like, it's the classic thing to say, but there is only one time. And if the immortal moment is the present, immortality is in the present. That is the only thing you're going to constantly experience until it's switched off, right? And you won't even know when that happens. So if the immortal moment is the present and you're immortally sad and depressed with your situation fundamentally has to change. There is so many ways to make money. Right now, I've gone back to a state of being not financially like confident and stable. But I am the happiest I've been in 5 years, and that proves to me that it's a fucking trap. Like it is a trap. It is like fundamentally it's a trap. Yeah, it's a trap. So I think it is literally like, the search for meaning lies in, do you have any perspective or freedom to step back from what you're doing, even if you're earning fucking pennies? If you've got enough, and I mean it's obviously hard right now for every situation, but if you've got enough to literally pay for food and the house and the travel to the places you need to go, and then you enjoy 70% of your life, live in that discomfort but enjoy the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? Because I knew the more I made money, I bought more things, didn't make me more happy, didn't do more things because I had no time, and whenever I had time I was like, can't be bothered to do anything. Now I look forward to seeing my friends again. But I don't think I saw some of my friends for like years, maybe once a year, because I was always so busy and they were always so busy.
Mate,
it's not worth it then, is it? If you're always so busy to do the fundamentally basic things that humans have always done, hang around in a community, enjoy yourself, play, whatever it is, then if you're just recovering constantly, I think that is the capitalist lie, is like you just have to basically work, consume, recover. Well,
this is someone said to me before, I'm so bad at knowing who says things to me, but just the thing that I've stopped saying, and this is something that someone said to me before, is like, I don't say I'm busy anymore. People used to say to me like, oh, how's business? I just go busy. And this is what this guy said to me. He was like, I turn around and say everything's in balance now. Because like it's such an important thing to like, you can sacrifice everything in your life for one thing, whatever that is. You could, like, whatever you decide to sacrifice your life for, whether that's a partner, whether that's work, whether that's something you're chasing in a sporting aspect, you can sacrifice a part of your life or your whole life to just do that one thing. Or you can sacrifice a little bit of everything to do everything that you want to do. And I think that's the thing that, like, yes, for me, it's like, I may not be the smartest. I may not be an unbelievable businessman. I may not have a really successful business earning millions of pounds. I may not be the strongest person in the gym. I may not look like Chris Bumstead. Everyone wants to look like Chris Bumstead. I may not get up at 4:30 like Jocko Willink. I may not tie my hands together and jump in a lake like David Goggins because I'm not a weirdo. But what I am doing is, like last night, I got home from work. My working day is 6 till 6. I set myself those times. I schedule what I do within those hours. And that first hour of that day is reading. I schedule my time out. 6 o'clock came and I was like, right, I'm going to play my Xbox for a bit.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm now trying, I would always feel guilt. Why are you not doing the things you think you should? And it's like,
same.
I'm going to sacrifice part of my life. It's part of the things I enjoy to chase something which may not be the right path. So for me to think about what I actually want from life and what I want to enjoy, and the ability to sacrifice a little bit of time overworking myself. So, like, the best analogy I can use, because I can only use training, is if I'm going to try and get as many pull-ups as possible and I'm going to do 4 sets, and I can do somewhere between the first set I can do 10 reps, second set I can maybe do 8 reps, third set 6, fourth set 4, well, why don't I just hit 8 reps for all of them and I'll get more pull-ups?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think about for this, is like, why don't I hit things at 80%? Why don't I give 100% of the effort when I'm into it? But why would I spend my whole life doing shit? I'm not going to. I'm going to think of the things that are important to me. I'm going to think of the things which give me back energy. And I'm going to make sure that when I'm working, when I'm training, I'm having it. Yeah. When I'm not, I'm relaxing to the max, man. And like, it's that thing of like, your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, that anxiety, cortisol, dopamine driven state when you are alert and you're ready and you're fired up. Like, when your engine's fired to that max, at some point you need to turn it down. Yeah, definitely. And it's like, what are those things that turn it down?
Yeah, I always had this theory. I have to be careful how I say this now, but I always had this theory about the idea of like ones and zeros, like binary code, right? So energy, if you use the metaphor of the matrix, the code that brings everything together, you know, everyone is at 1 or a 0. I'm not saying this like some people are better than other people, but it's like, is the light switched on? And when you're in that rat race, you're kind of like just using energy to fill the space. Whereas when you're like switched on, and this is what I was saying, you were saying about I may not be the smartest, but what you have is you're a 1. You're a 1 because you have perspective. You are switched on. You're aware of your surroundings. You're aware of the people around you. You're aware of your own mind. You are living with perspective. And that is fundamentally the energy that you're using is creating. And like, if you were to be really spiritual and be like, you know, what's the meaning of life? It's pretty great that the human race keeps accumulating and creating because of these ones, people who have perspective and intuition and creativity. It's because they are being true to themselves and they're not getting stuck in the rat race. And this isn't to say like this is some, it's not just some sort of genetic lottery. No. It's like you're born and you're either a 1 or a 0. You're either programmed or you're an NPC, and you're just like at the shop being, hello there. So it is about,
what would you like to buy today?
Yeah. Would you like another rain? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, human music. So I think like you definitely like it is definitely about like your mindset. Like,
I saw you in the other shop.
Yeah. Why aren't you blinking?
Wait, you were in London and Bristol. Hang on a minute, you are an NPC. They've changed the colour of your hair.
I have to go now.
Your face is exactly the same.
So I think it is kind of like, you know, you don't want to be a background character. You don't want to be the background character of someone else's hero story. And it isn't one story. The fact is you're all living in the narrative.
That's
right? You're all living the hero story, but you don't want to be the background character in somebody else's. And I think like, you know, you can put it into perspective and be like, people would say something who were trying to be woke, being like, yeah, but what about like cleaners, right? What about, the people who drive the bin trucks or whatever? It's like, yeah, they can have an amazingly interesting narrative and produce things just because their day job isn't something you consider to be important or valuable compared to like a doctor.
Do you know what's really interesting about that is like the people that are woke and say those things, the people that counter argument absolutely everything because they have nothing better to do. The people that go, well, what about the bin man?
Yeah,
mate.
Why are you being sensitive? Yeah,
you're the one who's bringing that guy down.
Absolutely,
like,
fact.
The one,
absolutely,
like when I'm sat here, and this was when I'm sat here going, everyone needs to chase their passion. Everyone needs to think about progression, whatever that is for them. I do not. It does not come with a caveat of only doing these 4 things.
Yeah.
It comes with the caveat of like, make your life the best you want it to be.
Yeah.
Like I've got a mate, right, and like I'm not going to get into the religious thing, but he's like found God and that's his thing.
Yeah, man.
And I'm
Sick.
like, sound.
Yeah.
You carry on and you do your thing because like it's such, and like to the point of like, get us a bit. This is the funny thing which we were talking about is like you can chase something to the point where it's no longer healthy. Like the geezer stood on Gloucester Road with a boombox speaking into a mic. Yeah, he's the same guy who I smoked weed with when I was like 12. Like, and it's just. Yes, he's taken that path. Yes, there would have been a point where those things were giving his life so much and he was getting something from it. It's now got to a point where it's taken away. And it's just that thing of like, whatever you decide to do, take your whole life into perspective. Have like this holistic and like individualistic approach to your life and be like, what do I want? What does the whole of my life consist of that's going to make me happy? How do I do those things? Yeah. And it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think also, like you were saying about, there was this video of this guy speaking. I don't actually know who he was. I think he was a rapper. But he was basically being like, when you're in a room with somebody and they're like, I'm going to fucking win, I'm winning. And you're like, I'm going to fucking win, I'm winning. Yeah, and you're like hyping each other up because you both are on a pathway to be like, yeah, we're going to win, we're going to do cool shit together. Yeah. When you have somebody being like, oh yeah, I told you not to do that. I warned you. It's like those people are celebrating in your failures because they fundamentally, and I'm literally, I don't know if this is the exact quote he used, but I was like, oh, that is so fucking good. It's like, because they don't love themselves. Yeah. Right. And he said it's the hardest pill to swallow because they don't love themselves, they want you to not win above them because they're like, well, if I can't have that perspective and that enjoyment, then why can't you? And I think that is the exact wokest mentality of basically being like, did you notice the difference between that person? Are you identifying the differences? Right. Yeah, we're all fucking different. Yeah, that's the point. It's great. Amazing.
And I think that's the whole point of like, when it comes to knowing who you are and the whole thing of being a victim, right? The whole thing of like, I'm a victim because you're winning. This drama triangle of like, someone's the persecutor, someone's the victim, someone's the savior. Like people who participate in that drama triangle, no one wins within that. And people who participate in that, people who are the victim or people who are the prosecutor, and they will jump from someone who is the victim will become a prosecutor and will start prosecuting someone else because making them the victim. And someone who is a savior who goes around trying to make you a victim so they can save you. Like, these people in this drama triangle do not win. And for everyone to know that, like, you said this and you said you realized this when you were 16, is that you have the ability to change your life. You have the ability to change the things that you don't like about yourself. Like, my problem is people are afraid. People run with that fear and that anxiety, and that's what stops them from doing it. And I think it could be from people who, and this is why, like, your job as a parent is probably the most important thing you'll ever do, because you will do things, and no one will be a good parent. No one will be a good parent. It's impossible. No one will do everything perfect. Everyone's parents' hope is just to hope that they fuck their kids up in a different way to where they were fucked up as a kid. Yeah. If you're aware enough to know that you have the ability to put something onto someone else. And this is my thing of, like, you need to understand that, like, you may have picked something up from your parents, you may have picked something up from your teacher, something may have happened when you were bullied at school, something may have happened when you were a kid that you can't let go of, you were broken up with, you were cheated on, and you could carry that through the rest of your life, and that could be what is the thing that defines you, and you could be a victim because everyone else has done stuff apart from you.
I think on that point, it's like, it's actually, everyone's going to be fucked up in their own way. Everyone's going to have fucked up experiences. People could claim some are more unfair than others, or some are more potent than others, but to the person it makes no difference, because their scale of fucked up is just the most fucked up thing that's ever happened to them. So it's just simply being whoever you are. Do not become defined by the moment of fucking upness. If anything, using it as a tool is amazing. There's some pretty fucked up shit that happened in my life, and I don't let it define me throughout the rest of my life, because I would just be living in that moment for the rest of time.
And that's my point. Like, I let so many things define who I was. I did so many things because of what had happened to me, and I let so many things take over my life because of that I was a victim to my situation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The ability to take a step back and go, like, if me and my dad, we had a massive falling out when I was younger, and I was like, I hated him. He didn't even know this, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I do not like you, and I was like, every time I was with him, I would just get turned up inside, and like we've spoke about this, which is why I can openly speak about it on here. It's just like I did not see eye to eye with him. I literally did. I hated every part of him, and it took me ages to take a step back to realize I'm the one who's keeping this going. I'm the one who's hurting myself. I'm the one who is actually causing myself pain right now, because he's not living in that situation. He is not living in that perspective. He does not feel the things that I am feeling towards him. So what is done is done. What has happened to you has happened to you. You can let that be the thing that defines you, and you can become the victim, or you can make the decision to go, like, I have the ability to change my life. I have the ability to take control of it. And it's not easy. If you just understand that the fear that you're turning away from, the anxiety you're feeling, which pushes you to want to be the victim, if you realize that there is something within that fear and anxiety for you to look within, for you to kind of fumble around in, to figure it out, to look deeper and go, like, there's something here I can sort out. There's something here which is a problem and an issue, and I can learn some new information and change that.
Yeah.
That's where your life opens up.
Yeah, I mean, you see me post this quote like twice, and it's probably one of the best quotes I've ever read, which is the quote from my favourite philosopher of all time, hands down easy, which is Albert Camus. And he was like, you know, in the harshest winter, in the most like horrific time of your life, in the harshest winter, I found an unbeatable summer. I found in the worst times a newfound strength to push past things. That quote is so unbelievably amazing for me, because it's like, if you can be brave enough to find a win in the greatest loss in your life, you are invincible. That is the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you. And in that, you found something productive. Imagine how strong you are after that. Like that is the key. You know, if you're on the door of death and you go no, it's very unlikely, if you have the power to say no, that you're going to come back to that position. Like, and I think that, you know, that is something that fundamentally I've always tried to live by, because it's not instant. Mate. It's like you're not in the moment and then you're like, God, this is fucking depressing. I'm just going to stop being depressed now. But like, it is just one of those moments that you have to, in that bad time, find ways of being like, okay, I've allowed myself to feel now, but how do I make this into a productive, powerful feeling, rather than one that is ultimately keeping me stagnant in the same place?
That's driven from awareness. That's driven from the ability to be aware. Grab my phone. Ability to be aware that, like, just aware of yourself. Like, but the ability to be aware is the ability to look at those places. Mm-hmm.
Reflect on them. Yeah, not be consumed by them, but be reflective upon them. I mean, you know, I'll probably this is the part where I talk about the thing I said earlier, but you know, this is fundamentally, when we're talking about perspective, like, this is what psychedelics did for me, like 100%, because I felt like, you know, in the lowest points of your life, you are most egotistical. When you are struggling the most, you become the most selfish because you are mostly involved in protecting yourself from the harm that you're already living in.
Mate, sorry, but that's like, yeah. So yes, what you've just said then is so fucking true, because every time I was in the lowest part of my life,
you hurt other people,
and I was like,
yeah,
I would hurt other people, and I'd be like, I can't believe how selfish everyone else is.
Yeah.
And then I have these thoughts in my mind going, why is all you're thinking about is yourself?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but I couldn't figure it out, and that's so true. At the lowest points of your life, you are the most egotistical.
100%. You're trying to protect yourself because you're already under harm, and you're basically in survival mode. And I mean, like, you know, the thing that I found is when I've done psychedelics from a very young age. And the thing that I found is obviously the number one power of psychedelics is the fact that they break apart your ego. They destroy your perspective of yourself. And like when you do something like a very high dose of mushrooms or DMT or something like that, there is no Chris anymore. Right, so you lose perspective on the thinker who is holding the bad thoughts and the perspective about yourself. And so when you come out of it, you realize that you have the ability to disattach certain feelings from yourself. And this is why, fundamentally, the zeitgeist about psychedelics will change and is changing, because now they've done it for therapy. They've realized, actually, the depressive symptoms you experience are an association, or you're basically trapped in associations that are unhealthy and damaging. And when there is the experience of psychedelics disassociating the feeling from the person and being like, I was sad, I am sad, and sadness happens, I am, and you have the ability to disattach them. They've obviously now found, like David Nutt was showing, he's actually from Bristol, shout out to David Nutt, he actually found all these studies of basically being like people who did a psychedelic trip in a controlled circumstance with a doctor, with a medical professional.
Is this the Netflix thing? There's a thing on Netflix.
Yeah, so that's come out like, I mean, David Nutt wrote a book like 10 years ago. Okay. Right, so this is new now to the wider space. Yeah. It's coming into the mainstream because the evidence is undeniable. And basically, the British government fucked up. He worked for the government. They fired him. And he was saying, do not make these Class A drugs because they are fundamentally helpful to humankind. And alcohol is the true danger to humanity. Yeah. And they were like, nah, tax.
Yeah.
Make mushrooms illegal. Make them really bad. No, he was basically finding that a person who sat down in a room with a doctor, talked about their feelings on a high dose of mushrooms, or a relatively high dose of mushrooms, one that took them out of a state of normality, could experience regressive symptoms of depression for up to a year. Now, think of every person currently that is on antidepressant medication, that they take that all the time.
Yeah.
They are on a constant state of using that medication to help them get away from these bad feelings. If I told you, instead of all that money going to pharmaceutical companies and being spent and all that time basically fucking up with your hormones in your body and stuff, you could do this thing and it would help you have an alleviation of symptoms. Like, obviously, that's not, you can't sell that. Do you know what I mean? You can't sell that. That's why it's so amazing and potent. But I felt that with me in my lowest times, having experienced that, I could get to a place basically where I could have a relief from those symptoms because I'd realize I'm not depression.
So here's a, not a counter argument, but here is something to think about with a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is, because I think I've had a very similar realization. I've never taken psychedelics. I've had a very similar thing happen through the persistence of, similar to you, not being happy with where I was and understanding that my lack of knowledge is the thing that is holding me back. So if I can learn more about different theories as to why I could feel the way I feel, as to why something has happened to me, as to why I feel the way I do now when I'm 25 because of something that happened to me when I was 5 years old, me learning all of these things, me discovering these things about myself and opening myself up to go through this type of thing, do you think that like the psychedelic route, is that possibly a route which is it giving you the space to explore these things, or is it just another type of band-aid? Is it just another thing that I can lean on because I don't want to still look at that?
Well, the thing is, the tool is realigning perception. That's the tool. So what you're describing is like, can I change my?
If it was training, that would be the principle.
Yeah. Can I look in myself to make fundamental changes about myself to improve?
Yeah.
Right. Yes. 100%. That is the tool. That is what we're trying to achieve, or that's the goal. Sorry. And there is multiple ways you could do this. Meditation, famously. Yep. There's a really good example of somebody who said, like, okay, so when people say psychedelic, it's very hard for them to realize what it is. The religious experience, people seeing God, dreaming, meditating to a state where you've kind of lost the perception of self. All of these are psychedelic experiences. Dancing at a rave, fully involved in the moment, fully enjoying yourself in that time, losing that sense of self and having an enlightened state of like, I'm just in this moment in time, and it's just experience. It's not me experiencing, I'm just experiencing, right? That is psychedelic, right? If you want to use the substance is a method, and I would say the method is, that's a sledgehammer. If you're in a fucking cage, right? That's breaking you out of your cage. That is a way of breaking you out of your cage. A great example was given to me, which is like, meditating is like psychedelic experience riding a tricycle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? DMT is like a motocross over a ramp, over a fucking canyon, through a flaming hoop. Right? The result is the same. But one is steady.
So this
in control. It's not like, I'm not just being like, everyone take drugs. I'm saying that it's a tool. For me, I found very helpful. And there is multiple other ways to get that access to that good. I would say, I think in the next 10 years, it will be the greatest tool used for people who are suicidally depressed.
I think I 100% agree. The reason I like to, there's a big thing at the moment, me and Mark talk about a lot, is that people just don't want to work for things. People don't want to work hard.
I get that. I get that.
So for me, it's the case of like, stop, like,
don't find shortcuts, basically.
Don't find the shortcuts. Use use every tool at your availability if you need to. My thing is just because it's currently, and I agree, I think they will be using psychedelics in the future with therapy. Like, I watched that thing on Netflix. It was really, really good. I can't remember what it's called, but
there's loads.
Something about, but basically they were videoing people in hospital beds
about to die.
Going through a trip. They were like counseling them through the whole trip, like people crying for hours, really interested to watch. And I think like it was really like hard hitting for me. But like, my thing is, just because it's not legal in the UK right now, don't go, well, that's the thing, I should be actually all right, but I can't do that.
So this is the statement that I always hear whenever I talk about this to someone, because obviously it's quite extreme. And back when the openly admitted thing here is, I am an extreme person. I started psychedelics when I was 15. It's a very young age to do anything like that, and I would never recommend anyone do that because it can permanently change your brain state, right? But something I would say is, lots of people say this sentence to me, which relates to something we were saying earlier. They say, I don't like feeling like I don't have control.
Yeah.
Right? And they always reference it. They're like, I wouldn't want to do that because I'd be out of my head. I wouldn't like feeling out of control. Well, Sharon, don't drink at the weekends. But the actual truth is, it says exactly what we were saying about changing circumstances. I don't want to give up my job because I don't know what's out there and I'll lose everything I have now. Well, what you have now, is that inherently valuable to you? Or is that just what you have now? You just like the security of the known. The security of, I know I have this, I know what it feels like. Even if it feels bad, I know that feeling, I understand it. The idea with the psychedelic experience is breaking you out of that, but forget the psychedelics, throw them out the window. It's also being like, well, if I come out of this experience into a new one, I'm opening the door to new, better experiences. And that anxiety, you were saying, like, that's good. It could be harmful, but it could, like all psychedelic experience I've ever done, mostly at one point in the moment, fucking terrifying. There's been moments when you're not in the room and you're with alien pixie people. It's quite scary. You're like, well, I don't know how to stop this.
Yeah.
This is just this. I'm just in it. But what it teaches you is you have to accept, but I just can't do anything about it. This is just how it is. And having that ability to be like, I'm not in control, that's all right, is amazing. Because most of the life, you're not actually as in control as you think you are.
And this is the thing, like, I think when it comes to stuff like this, is like anything which is unknown, you address, you lead into it first with fear and anxiety, and second into like promise and excitement. And that's pretty much the pathway you'll go down, unless something is very similar to a situation you've done in the past. So for example, like the reason like people call things gateway drugs is because like it opens up the possibility, like, I had fun when I did that one, well, I'm going to do this one because I'm going to have fun doing this one. And the question I want to ask you is like, what stops you from just taking drugs all the time? If you've got an addictive personality and it is such a good thing, what stops you from just doing it all the time?
Well, there's two things there that are good to address. One is the way we use language, which is the word drugs. The word drugs is a substance that alters your mind. Okay, don't drink caffeine.
Yeah.
Okay, don't hydrate yourself properly. Everything you do alters your neurochemistry, right?
Correct. But
right.
just from like standard point of view,
so if we're talking about drugs, like the average drug, if we're talking about things that are illegal.
When I say drugs, people know the common tongue of what it is.
Yeah. So I would say that there's the two reasons are, one is obviously it depends on the substance. I would say that it's not the return to nature principle of like everything that's natural is better. That's not true. Nightshade kills you. Not everything natural is good, but generally the things that come from the earth and are not processed, there is a much less immediately addictive sense to them because they're not refined, so they're not as potent. So like coca leaf compared to cocaine, very different. Lots of people have chewed coca leaf for stimulation while working through their whole entire life in Mexico or Peru, and they're not addicted to cocaine in the same way someone who's addicted to cocaine is. But the main thing with psychedelics is that psychedelics, and this is why I don't like the word drug for psychedelics, and medicine is a bit of a weird word as well, but the reason that psychedelics are different is because they are anti-addictive. Okay. Right? They aren't addictive. They physically aren't addictive. They chemically aren't addictive, like nicotine is, like cocaine is. But the other thing is people have been shown to actually give up addictions on trials of psychedelics. So people who have been alcoholics and smoked all their lives can do trips. They can disattach the addictive part of their mind. Addiction, me, not I am addicted. Right.
But what's the thing for you? What stops you from just doing psychedelics all the time?
Terrifying. It is terrifying. Okay. There's moments where it's fun. There is like when you do a light psychedelic trip, it takes you out of your comfort zone, and you can find comfort in it and be with a friend and be chatting really deep and opening perspective, and it's really enjoyable. But I do like just doing my daily stuff that makes me feel good, and I know where I'm at,
and I think that
takes you out of that comfort zone that you don't want to do that all the time.
But that's why I wanted to ask, was because like this is something which, like, again, as you go through life, you make your own decisions on which path you decide to take and which way you decide to address life. And there is and there could be and there will be in the future benefits to taking psychedelics for your mental health. There definitely could be that, and like studies are being shown. Obviously the narrative around it is changing. It will change. Like in America they've approved it quite a bit, and the reason I want to ask you that is just because like it's just a case of understanding that there is a difference between like I'm doing something for its good and now this good thing is now making me worse, and it's just like it's just that disassociation of knowing like actually, yes, there is a possibility that this could be a good thing. Yeah. There's also a possibility this could be a bad thing.
Yeah, well, this is the literal basic principle of training, and is actually the basic principle of any adaptation in the human body, which is small controls amount of stress build anti-fragility and resilience, right? So my perspective would be putting yourself into a small controlled amount of ego dissolving or perspective destroying stress, in the form of meditating, in the form of,
counseling,
whatever it is, breaking apart your boundaries, whatever that is, you're choosing the stress to create adaptation for change. That could similarly be David Goggins going into an ice.
Right. Yes. And this is good.
Could be that. Could be you choose your discomfort to make growth. That is what we should all do.
And that is practically,
if you feel no discomfort in your life except the feeling of discomfort, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yes. We're pretty much going to leave it there. Powerlifting. Before we end,
talk about books next time.
You've done it.
I did do it.
How good were you? And then
pretty good.
We'll kind of leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, after I did it, obviously, like, that guy was like, yeah, you got a pretty big deadlift for a guy that weighs nothing. I kind of trained it, a bit more focus, had a very great mentor, had two great mentors, actually. Shout out to both of them. Adam Nash, he originally trained me, and he took me to my initial win, and he taught me most of what I know about powerlifting. And then a good friend of mine, Alex Piedez, also helps me a lot with my powerlifting. He's also a powerlifter and a coach, and he took me probably deeper into it, the next level. I was quite young at the time, so I wasn't like fully engaged in the same way of training as I am now. There was obviously a natural propensity. I went to the British Championships in the first year I trained powerlifting, which was 2016. And I won the junior British Championships as a 59 kilo lifter. In that year, I got a 107.5 bench press, which was the current British record at the time.
59 kilos.
59 kilos. So my lifts were something along the lines of 190.
190 squat.
190 deadlift. 107.5 bench. And I think it was like a 145 squat. And then the next year, my squat improved. My deadlift was like 152.5 squat, a 195 deadlift, and like a 110 bench, or maybe even a 112 bench. It might have been a 112 bench. So I was competitive. I got invited to go to Europeans, but the only thing with GPF, no offense to them, but they don't really provide much support. As it is a lifter, you compete in their thing for the renown and the position and status and everything, but you don't get paid to be a powerlifter. So when they were like, yeah, we're going to fly out to Belarus and compete in the Europeans, I was like, well, I don't have 750 quid to do that, so I can't do that, which is a shame because it would have been a great experience.
But you were pretty good then.
Yeah, pretty good.
We're going to leave it there. Chris will be on again
till next time,
very soon. So what's going to happen basically going further forward, going into the future? Chris is going to be on more. Jasper, who you're about to hear, is going to be on more as well. And we're just going to start to give you different perspectives on fitness, different perspectives on life. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you on the next one.
On to the next.
Well, that was a corker. Hopefully you're not like rummaging around fields looking for hot psychedelics that you can just take on a Sunday afternoon, but hopefully you did enjoy that one. I think the relationships between all of us, we get on so well that it's going to be great for you guys to be able to see us in action doing the podcast with different people. We got a few coming up, like with different pairings, me and Jasper, Mark and Chris. Like, it's gonna be really nice for you guys to see different people. We really are striving to make this podcast a bigger thing for the next year. We've worked really hard at it. We've really tried to make this something special. And I think if we can keep pushing, keep going, and you guys keep enjoying and telling us what you want to hear, hopefully we can grow this to a point where we can help more and more people. So Origin has a thing called the Origin Method. I don't know if they'll mention this in their podcast, but they are going to be releasing this kind of athlete style program, very along the lines of following a conjugate way of programming but applying it for functional fitness, I'll leave that to them. I think it would be one of the greatest things to come out of Origin, and there's a lot of great things to come out of Origin, so I think this would be really interesting to see where this goes, and if you guys want to know anything more, you can head to Origin Series website, or you can go to like Mark at Origin Series, you'll be able to see it there, or the Origin Method on Instagram, actually, you'll be able to find it, and that will be something, if you are into your functional fitness, you want to get involved in, because at the moment the boys are smashing PBs left, right, and center. So it's great to see. It's great to be a part of, even though like I do my own programming. Just the culture that this program has developed and the community that this has brought to the gym, and now to further communities out in the online space, it's been so good to be involved in, and just to witness this thing happening. Having no like invested input into this means I can be very objective, and actually that objective nature is quite nice because you can just see fucking results from everywhere. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you can find the Origin Method somewhere, and we will see you very, very soon. Cheers, gang.